Hi guys, it's 7 o'clock on a Sunday evening and I miraculously have an hour free before Si gets home from his mum's and before I'm not allowed to be in this room anymore. So I thought I'd just crack out a video. Crack out a video? That's not a very nice term. I thought I'd whack out a video. I thought I'd do a video. This video is inspired by Rian, aka Wife Life. I'll put her details below. I keep referencing her because I feel connected to her in some way. I agree with pretty much everything she says. She's the sort of person I think if we knew each other in real life I'd probably be friends with her if she let me be. That sounds creepy and stalkerish. She posted an Instagram, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe more, just talking about how people in the Q&As and just people in general are always asking her whether she wants to have kids, and just pointing out that maybe that's a question that people shouldn't ask. This video is about those questions that maybe you should ponder a bit longer before you ask people. Those things that actually maybe you shouldn't ask at all, maybe they're a bit sensitive. So I'm just going to go through a few which I think are maybe things that you shouldn't ask, and hear the reasons why. So, as Rian pointed out, the whole kids thing, obviously I've been asked about this in various Q&As and just in general, because I'm at the age where, you know, I am one of the only people within my friendship group, my close girls that I've known, you know, most of my life. I'm one of the last ones to have children, so it's obviously something I get asked a lot. It's such a loaded question and it's so personal. For instance, for all you know, that person might be trying and has been unsuccessful, and it might be a really sensitive topic for them. It might be something that's causing them a lot of stress and a lot of trauma. They may have miscarried secretly and you don't know about it. Perhaps it's a sticky, you know, area of conversation between them and their partner. Perhaps they're on different pages about when they want to have children or if they want to have children at all. There's also this assumption that all women want children, which isn't true at all. I have many friends that have no intention of having kids, and the fact that they're always being hit with this question as if it's like a given, as if it's something, you know, a rite of passage that every woman has to go through in life. Perhaps they've even lost a child before, for all you know, and so bringing up whether they're going to have kids might be deeply upsetting. There's so many reasons why asking someone when they're going to have kids might be sensitive or tricky subject. So just, I know sometimes it just rolls off the tongue if someone's got married, or if they've been with their partner for a while, or if they've got a maternal way about them. It might be a question that just rolls off your tongue, but try and stop yourself and just think, should I really ask that? Obviously this isn't the case for everyone. Like, I'm quite an open book and I think I've talked about most things, so I wouldn't be cross or upset if anyone asked me, but when I think about it, I think other people have every right to be, and I just think, unless you're really, really close friends and you know their stance on this area of things, maybe you shouldn't go there. Another question, why don't you drink? Obviously for many years I didn't touch alcohol at all. These days I will treat myself to the odd shandy or the odd mojito, but I still generally call myself a non-drinker. I definitely don't go out for the purpose of drinking, and I never get drunk, although these days probably 2 sips of mojito would have that result. I don't have any big reason that I would be embarrassed to share necessarily behind it, but you've got to consider that some people might choose to drink because they perhaps grew up in a household where drink was a very bad thing. Perhaps it contributed to a toxic relationship or some sort of violence in the home, or just bad relationships in general. Perhaps the person in question has struggled with addiction and was at one point or is now an alcoholic. Actually, I don't think you ever stop being an alcoholic, you just manage it. So perhaps they're an alcoholic. Perhaps they know they've got a tendency to have an addictive personality, so try and avoid the pitfalls of that and try and avoid getting in those situations. But in my case, I would have to go down the route of going, well, I have terrible diarrhea when I have too much to drink, and I get a really unsightly rash on my body. And you know, when someone's just asking a question and it's in a party atmosphere and it's meant to be banter, you don't really want to go down the route of talking about your bowel movements and, you know, almost pooing your pants sometimes and looking a bit rank. You don't really want to tell like strangers that, let alone your friends. So maybe just consider the possible reasons before you jump in there thinking it's going to be a really easy or fun answer. It might put them in a really uncomfortable position to have to talk about something they don't want to talk about. It might be a case that they're really struggling for money and they can't afford to buy alcohol. As you know, in London and in Surrey and lots of places, alcohol is not cheap. My friend bought a glass of wine in our pub last night. It cost £8. So if you are struggling for money and, you know, alcohol is a luxury thing, they might not be able to afford it. And yet again, that might not be something they want to tell someone about. It might be that their partner is not happy with them drinking because it brings out a bad side of them, or perhaps they know that it brings a bad side out of them. Perhaps they tend to text the ex, or perhaps they just act a bit looser, or perhaps they get into mischief, whatever, and they know that them plus alcohol is a bad combination. Perhaps they're pregnant and they can't drink, but putting them in that position where they've got to lie to you if they're not ready to tell you that they're pregnant, that's awkward too. So this one is something that I've had so many times and it's so awkward. At my local doctors, because a lot of people that I grew up with, went to school with, dated or whatever, still live in the area, like we haven't moved to London or whatever. When you go to anywhere, you're likely to see someone you know, and that includes when you're at the doctors. Now, I don't know what the official etiquette is in waiting rooms, but when I've gone to the doctors and I've seen someone I know, probably 8 times out of 10 they've said, "So what are you here for?" Now, when you think of the possible things you could be there for, they're not necessarily things you want to tell people about. You know, I've been in waiting rooms because I'm about to have a camera up my bottom. You know, if you've got diarrhea or anything, think if someone's in there because they've got, you know, an STI scare, or what if someone's there because they're really worried about something serious and they're getting the results that day or something. You just don't want to have the added pressure of going, okay, do I lie to this person? Do I tell them the truth? Do I make them feel awkward by telling them the truth? Just don't ask. If they want to offer up the information and tell you why they're there, they kind of navigate the conversation that way. But if they don't, just ask them about other things of their lives. Maybe just ask them, how's work? Or how's your, I don't know, just something, anything but asking why they're there. Another one that I get a hell of a lot is, so how much do you earn? And this is a thing I think happens more and more these days because there's so many new careers like YouTubing, blogging, media stuff that hasn't happened before. So no one has a grasp on how people make money and how much money they make and just how the system works. So people are just innately curious about it and just want to know. It's not coming from necessarily always a bad or nosy place. A lot of people just don't know and would like to know. But asking someone how much they earn, oh, it's so personal. I've got a friend that always asks really personal questions like this, and then when I say I'd rather not say, it then just makes the conversation really awkward and you get, oh, sorry, sort of thing. And you just think, oh, I don't want that kind of awkward conversation, but I don't really want to talk about it either. In my case, it's generally because I'm a bit embarrassed because I know I'm barely earning anything. So a lot of people, I'm sure, won't want to talk about it because they're feeling embarrassed or feel a certain amount of shame about what they're earning, particularly if the person that's asking is doing a whole lot better than them and they don't want to see their like head tilt, a sympathetic face in response to your answer. But then I think also if you are suddenly doing well, or you got a bonus or something, or you know you're doing a lot better than the person that's asked you, then you also feel awkward because you don't want them to feel belittled or feel inferior. So it goes both ways really. I always said if I won the lottery, I wouldn't tell people, because as soon as people know you've got a lot of money, there's an assumption. You always hear people that have won the lottery say things like, oh, every birthday people expected me to get this amazing present for them. They expected me to pay all the pub bill or the bar bill and, you know, treat everyone to lunch. And then you can imagine this pressure that happens every time there's some sort of event that you've got to kind of showcase your money in some way, and that every kind of generous thing you do has got to have been scaled up somewhat. And then there's also like, if someone was in financial trouble, there's this expectation that you've got to help them out of it. And of course most of us would do it if we could afford it, but it's just the pressure once people know what your financial standing is. But I think things like this is very much how you're brought up. Like, my parents always brought me up not to talk about money. They never put emphasis on money. We were always discreet and quite private about it. But then other families will be different. So for me, I've never been someone to really discuss earnings or money or anything like that. All these are each to their own, but I just know that it makes some people uncomfortable. So if you want to avoid it, just don't bring it up. Why are you so thin? Don't you eat? Growing up, I was quite a scrawny kid, and although I always had a healthy appetite, I've never had any issues with food apart from obviously all my allergies and my IBS and stuff. I've never had something mentally that affected my eating habits. When people ask me questions like that, it always seemed to have a sort of insinuation somewhat, that they wanted me to say, oh, I'm always on a diet, or, you know, tell them I had an eating disorder. And I think people don't realise how hurtful those comments are, and also how intrusive they can feel. It also goes for people that struggle with their weight in other ways. If you're slightly overweight, if people say, so what are you eating? Like, how many calories a day do you consume? You never know what's going on with someone, whether they're on a medication that affects their weight, whether they're going through a stressful period in their life, perhaps they've got allergies or whatever. So just think carefully about when you say these flippant comments about people's appearance and how it might affect them. Because there's comments that were said to me when I was younger, even by medical people, that I don't forget. And, you know, it does live with you and make you slightly paranoid about certain parts of your body. Just be mindful that the comments you make to people as they grow up, or at any point in their life, can continue to affect the person as they continue through their life. You don't forget certain comments. How many people have you slept with? This is something that comes up sometimes when you are amongst friends, but also when you start a new relationship. And I don't think it ever helps anything. I think whatever figure you give, there'll be a reason to be dissatisfied with it. Either it would be too many or too few or the wrong people. And I'm not sure knowing ever helps anything, to be honest. And I always remember when I was growing up, because I was a bit of a late bloomer and because I was quite inexperienced, I remember dreading those questions coming up. I'd always try and steer the conversation in a different direction, hoping we could get off that topic, and that it would never come round to me and I could just opt out, because I didn't want to say that it was like or very small. But I think on the other side of things, I've got friends that have been quite busy in that department, and I know they don't like that question either, because they don't like the fact that people hear a number, but they won't necessarily hear the stories behind that number, or what led to that number, or, you know, how many of them are actually significant people in that person's life, or perhaps why they're in a position in their life where they sort out certain things. I just think it's an intensely personal thing, and not everyone wants to talk about sex at all. And I think you've also got to factor in that as soon as anyone talks about sex, that it's automatically involving other people who haven't, you know, said, yeah, I'm all right for you to talk about that, because obviously every time you have sex, it involves one or more people. So I think just don't go there unless, like I said, with all these things, you're super comfortable with the people, you pretty much know everything anyway, and you know that you're both really comfortable with it and chatting about it, and you don't really have secrets. The one for me is like the whole how old are you thing, because in so many cases when I see it asked, I think, how is that relevant? Like, I get annoyed like in things to do with jobs and careers when age is brought up, and I think, what are you going to do with that answer? Is that answer going to affect whether you hire me or not? Because it really shouldn't, because this job shouldn't be based on an age thing. It should be based on your talent, suitability, enthusiasm, how good you'll be for the role, how good a fit you'll be for the role. Legal ages for things, obviously, that we need it for that, but in general, like even in magazines when I read it and they like have a woman and then they put her age afterwards, and I'm like, yeah, it's interesting maybe to know her age, because it's like you can compare to your own life what they're doing, although that's not always a nice thing, because you're like, oh, she's doing so much better than me and she's 5 years younger. But on the most part, I think to myself, really, did we need to know her age? Probably not. And imagine if we made friends and built relationships not based on, oh, are they in the age bracket I'd ideally like to settle down with? Are they in the age bracket I think is the people I should be hanging out with? Because, you know, you get 25-year-olds that are mature than 40-year-olds, and then you get 40-year-olds that are like 18-year-olds. Imagine if we just made friends with people we made friends with. Well, I do actually. But I know that like one of my best friends is 7 years younger than me. And initially I was like, oh God, she's going to make me feel really old. I'm not going to have anything in common. We don't have, you know, we're not in the same stages of our lives. But it turns out I have more in common with her than I do lots of people my own age. Probably because I'm slightly regressed because of my situation. But her maturity level, the things we're interested in, the things that we find funny are very much the same. And actually, she probably keeps me a bit younger, and then I can introduce her to things from my era that I know she'll like as well. So that's really nice. I remember I met a guy once. We got on so well, like instant like that. Really liked him. He seemed to like me. And then I found out that he was quite a few years younger than me. I think it was only like 4 years. But it like gave me the ick, and I was like, oh no, sorry, can't do that. And I literally stepped back immediately and went, no, this can't happen. I got the ick basically. And I thought, now as I'm a bit older, I probably still would do that, to be honest. But at the same time I think, how silly. Like, age ain't nothing but a number, as Aaliyah said. And I think we've got to stop putting emphasis on age. Like, I work myself up about it sometimes because I think too much emphasis is put on it, and I feel like quite often I'm not getting jobs because people don't think I'm young, cool, hip enough. The fact I've said hip says it all. But yeah, so maybe if we just need to not focus so much on age. So maybe don't ask people, because a lot of people aren't going to be comfortable to say it, mainly because, you know, certain industries and certain people in society look at age in a way they shouldn't. Like, oh, once you're past 45 you're not going to be good at this, etc., which, you know, most cases is absolutely ridiculous. Finally is politics and religion. Now, I am slightly conflicted about this one because I do think it is important we have healthy debate, healthy discussion, intelligent chats about what's going on in the world, and just be clued up, because it does affect us. And by opening up, it probably does ensure that we get all the information we need, whether it's information from opposing people trying to explain their side of things, or from people that are kind of on our side of things that can back up what we're already feeling about, you know, our angle and our opinion on things. But I do know that, you know, there's a time and place for it, because I've been at, you know, parties, dinner parties and things like that, and someone's brought up politics, and suddenly divides are created. It can get a bit heated, it can get a bit tense, and it just changes the vibe completely. People are very passionate usually about what they believe, and sometimes people are right in their opinion, and sometimes people have got false information, and it's frustrating when you know what they're saying isn't correct, and yeah, it's just a bit awkward sometimes. So I think definitely we should be chatting about this stuff, and we need to. But I think it's about finding a right time and a place, and not making people feel bad about their choices and their opinions, but trying to listen to why they've made them, and just offer up your side of things in a calm way. Religion is another thing that, you know, can create quite an emotional response, and obviously there's so many religions and there's so many different views and ways of life, and we have to respect each other and each other's choices, but sometimes it's quite hard to understand other people's choices, and if you broach that subject in an unsuitable environment, unsuitable occasion, then it can lead to awkwardness, and some people don't like to debate these things, and they don't want to be put in a position where they have to fight their corner or explain their faith and why they believe in it. So yeah, I think you've just got to be aware that if you bring it up and if you do talk about it, you've got to be prepared that some people will be very vocal, some people will be very passionate, some people might step back from it, some people might be obviously awkward about it. But like with the politics thing, I think it's healthy to debate and talk and have intelligent conversation, but you just got to be aware and mindful that not everyone will want to discuss it in that moment. So yeah, there's just a few that I've thought of. If you can think of any more things that you wish you weren't asked or wish people wouldn't say to you, put them below. I hope this was interesting, and I hope it's made some of you think about maybe how you approach people and what you ask them and what you say. If not, I just hope you appreciate that I filmed on a Sunday evening looking like this. Oh God. Did I tell you I'd be watching a teary movie just before filming this? I couldn't really be bothered to refresh my makeup too much, so I look a little bit ugh. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.